And I'll tell you, I'm a senior. I'm a successful, energetic, no-nonsense, inspiring, outrageous rebel looking for her next adventure.
Hello, you are listening to the Late Bloomer Living podcast. It's season 4, and here we are still reimagining, rethinking, and redefining what it means to be in midlife and what's possible as we age. We are gathering energy, momentum, and excitement for our next chapter via candid conversations with other midlifers about their own pivots, pitfalls, and triumphs. I'm Yvonne Marchese, your host, and I'm so happy you're here. I created this podcast to give you inspiration and let you know you're not alone in feeling stuck in midlife. Both men and women are welcome here, but if you are a woman, I also invite you to join the Age Agitators Club for Women, where we come together monthly to hatch our plans for making waves as we age. Being part of this community for women will remind you on a regular basis that you're not too old, and it's never too late to do that thing you've been thinking about. You can find more information at latebloomerliving.com/community, and I hope to see you there. I am so excited to bring this week's guest to you. Her name is Barbara Ellison. I met her in Clubhouse. I know I meet a lot of people in Clubhouse, don't I? But Barbara came into our room one day and just blew me away. She is a speaker. She's an author. She's a show host. She's a certified personality trainer, a certified dream coach, which I totally want to ask her about, a life trainer and founder of the Wellness Playroom. She is on a mission, and I love this mission. Are you ready? She's on a mission to make happiness the norm rather than the exception. Isn't that awesome? And she's committed to working with those who are feeling lost or unfulfilled or questioning their identity outside of their job title or their job description to help them discover purpose, passion, and drive to take them into an active, healthy, and abundant retirement. Barbara, thank you so much for being with me today. I'm so excited to have you.
And thank you so much for having me. Little did I know that day that I mean, it was an accident that I went into Clubhouse. But there you were. And I truly believe that God helps us to meet the people that we're supposed to meet. And now here we are.
I know you followed an impulse and boom, there it was. And since then we've connected how many times? It's crazy.
Oh, yeah. So many times. So many times. Yeah. You were part of my gratitude summit and I had you on my show and
So you have, okay, so let me get right into it. How old are you? If you don't mind me asking, right?
I am 73.
You are 73. You have how many podcasts?
3.
3. I love it. Oh my gosh. 3. And that's just part of what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, where do I start, Barbara? When you came into Clubhouse, I don't know how we got onto this conversation, but what you shared was really powerful. And part of that was that you had been a caretaker for your husband when he was dying. And then you were widowed.
Yeah. And
a lot of what's happening now has happened since then.
Yes.
Would you say because of? Can you talk a little bit to that?
Absolutely. When I got to the point where I realized that I was going to lose my husband, because I took care of him for 2 years, and that was just really, really hard, very devastating. And yet there were moments of joy in there, surprisingly, because he would hallucinate things, and he had a choir that was sing to him, and we were like, okay, we don't see anybody. So there were little moments of funniness and things like that. And he had a tumor. He had cancer, and one of the tumors went into the orbit of his eye and went into his brain. So he went from being this wonderful, vibrant worship leader to being just like instant dementia. And that's when he started hallucinating and all that. And so every once in a while, he would be like, oh, and I would say, oh, there's David. And then he'd be gone again.
Yeah.
So
I'm
that
kind
was
of
a
experiencing the same thing with my dad right now. He has dementia, and
yeah,
it's such a crazy, it's not because of cancer, but it's been
yeah,
a slow onset. And
yeah,
there are funny moments with him,
right.
and then there are those little glimpses of, oh, there he is,
There he is. And you
Yeah.
see it. And like I dealt with that with my mom because she had dementia. Little did I know, I wish I had known then what I know now, that so much of dementia they're now proving is part of it's, they're calling it diabetes 3.
Yeah.
It's related to nutrients. And so now that I'm a brand partner for a wellness company, and it has been amazing to see the difference in people that they're like, oh, they're cognitive. If you can get it fast enough, you get back your cognitive. But while I was taking care of him, I still had him to comfort me, sort of, while I was losing him. But then once he was gone, that was still, yike, now what? Here's me, 61 years old. And when I woke up, and then I, went into the widow's fog, which I didn't think I would have and didn't realize I had until the day I woke up from it.
What is
Little
the
did I
widow's
know.
fog? Can you talk about
It's
that?
like you are just clouded brain. Like the only thing I really remember about the first year after David died was the fact that I binged watched all 10 years of Frasier. That's
Wow.
the only thing I really remember doing. I know I did things. I, made dinner. I fed myself. I went out for dinner. I did the things that I normally do, but I don't really remember them
Mm.
until the day I woke up. And yet I can tell you exactly where I was sitting in my house when I woke up. However, in that throes of, in a space of probably 10 or 15 minutes, I woke up and went, okay, Barbara, David's died. You have not. What are you going to do for the rest of your life?
Mm.
Yvonne, it was the scariest moment of my life because I realized in that moment that I had no idea who I was
Mm.
outside of all the labels that I had put on myself or society put on myself of being a daughter and then being a wife and then being a mother and then being a divorced failure.
Mm.
Oh, and then I was single again. And well, then I got married again. And then I was a successful wife again. And then I was a grandmother, a business owner, and now I'm a widow. Who am I in all of that?
Mm.
And I had
Wow.
no idea. Then what was the blessing to me was that I realized, number one, I realized I couldn't do it on my own. I need help. What am I going to do? I need help. And luckily was introduced to a coaching program called the Ultimate Game of Life. Met another friend of mine who has since passed away, but she was also a widow.
Mm-hmm.
So we had these absolutely amazing conversations. Plus, she was a business coach. So it was like, oh, this was a match made in heaven. She lived in Florida. I lived here in Chicago, but we had great synergy and we helped each other. And we talked about how our husbands died. Mine, I took care of for 2 years. Her husband dropped dead in front of her.
Oh, and
So
it's like it's all awful, right? Like
it's
sometimes
death
I wonder
sucks,
what's easier, what's harder. Who
right?
knows, right?
Well, that's
Oh,
what the conversations were about. That's what we had wonderful conversations just about grief because we were both still grieving. But
yeah.
then it was like, okay, let's get together. And that's when we started our first podcast. Well, I started my first podcast with her. She said,
Oh,
let's talk to people about getting over stuff. That you don't have to suffer alone. And we called it the Everyday Riches Show. And just finding the riches in the everyday, because
I love that.
there are moments of hilarity even when we were taking care of our husbands and when her husband died. It was like we had all those things. Well, now that just kind of mushroomed into other things, and so now I have the Time to Shine happiness show, and that's on E360 TV. And so it has just been a blessing to be able to help people and to give them options, because one of my favorite sayings is that you have no idea. You don't know what you don't know until someone else tells you something that you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And once
And
people
it registers, right? It's like somebody can tell you, and sometimes you still aren't even ready to hear
you're
it
not ready
until
to
you're
hear
ready
it.
to hear.
But when something lands, that's what and that's one of the people ask me why I'm a coach, because now because of my journey, I now realize that that's my calling, is to coach other people. But now I deal with late career business owners that are in the same boat that I was. They have no idea of who they are, but they're identifying with their job description or their job title. And now they're facing retirement, and now the thoughts that are going through their head are, ooh, what if I'm not relevant anymore? Or what if I'm not respected anymore? Or, ooh, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to go be at home, and what am I going to do? And all of those feelings of being having they don't know. It's that fear of the unknown. They don't know
The
who they
labels we
are.
put on ourselves make a big difference,
The
don't they?
labels.
I
Exactly.
had that same experience, only a little bit earlier, because I was an actress until I became a mom. And then I thought I'd go back. I took some time off, thought I'd get back to it. And I started auditioning again. And I realized that I was well and truly done, but it was all I had ever wanted to do or be.
Right.
And I had put every bit of my life energy towards that career. And so then when I was done, it took me 5 years to find the camera and become a photographer. And that was a long journey of, well, who am I? If I'm not Yvonne, pursuing a theater degree, or a theater career, then who and what am I? So yeah, wow.
Exactly. And that's exactly what's happening. And the tragedy of it, though, is that so many people, especially men, I'm not picking on you guys, but especially men, they're not talking about it. So what happens is, statistically, if they don't make the transition from the working corporate structure to the retirement, if they don't make that transition, chances are within 18 to 24 months, they will not be here anymore.
Yeah, the whole idea of retirement is like this. It's like this negative space, right? I remember the first time I came across that concept, I was right. Oh, right. If you ask somebody what they do and they say, I'm retired.
Yes.
That's like a whole lot of nothingness, right? Like that's not your identity. That's not who you are. You're not retired. You're a person still. You're right.
Well, there's two sides of retirement. The two aspects of it that people lots of times fall into. You will find the ones that are just so excited. They can't wait to do XYZ. Oh, I can't wait to be retired. And my father was one of those. He knew what he was going to be doing. He had it all. And he lived to be 102. I only lost my dad like 5 years ago.
Wow.
Lived to be 102. His friend, Mo, didn't have that drive. He was on the other side of it, like, oh, who am I? What am I going to do? What if nobody likes me anymore? What if I can't handle it? All of the negative feelings that come of not being, ooh, how am I going to handle not having a structure? All of those things. And it's different for everybody. Well, he didn't make the transition.
I think especially for men, because career is so associated with what in the old model, right? Of men as the breadwinners and all that. That is their identity. And then how do you introduce yourself when you've been introducing yourself for 40 years as the blah, blah, blah of blah, blah, blah. And there's some what's the word I'm looking for? There's
angst. It's just deep-seated angst.
There's value that comes from being able to associate yourself with a certain company or a certain title, and when that's gone, what's left?
And if they don't make the transition, and their studies have shown now that if they don't make the transition, they fall into drugs, alcohol, or death.
Wow.
And
Drugs is surprising to me. I mean, alcohol, I could see that as
one of the things. Well, sometimes it's because as they're facing this, they're getting older. Their body is, so they get into, like, their joints are hurting because if they're not building up their immune system, they're falling into ill health. They've gained weight. The stress is up the yin yang, so they're on medication for stress. Like, that's why I'm a proponent of the nutritional alternatives. We do not need to be taking drugs. However, that's what happens. So now their knees hurt, their ankles hurt. So now they're on pain meds. Well, guess what? It's really easy to abuse is pain meds.
Yeah, I get you. I get that.
So it's what they're not talking about. That's the big gap. Like, one of the things that, like, kind of a little analogies, on this side, we have retirement. On this side, we have the corporate structure. They're working, and it's not necessarily corporate, but it's business owners, leaders, whoever. But right here is the gap. And right now, nobody's they're not talking about the gap because they're not talking about how they're feeling. They don't want to face it. They don't want to ask for help. They don't want to admit that they need to talk to somebody. Heaven forbid they talk to somebody. Well, that's where I fit in.
Do you work with men and women?
Oh, yeah. And I tend to work mostly with men because they can identify with my story. That was the scariest moment of my life, when I had no idea of who I was outside of all the labels that I had put on myself. It doesn't make a difference. To that,
Barbara, because before we hit the record button, you were talking about those labels and we were talking a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey and how that was not acceptable in the way you were raised. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. My uncle was absolutely an entrepreneur. Well, I came from a very conservative, you go to school, you get a career, you stay for 35 years, that kind of stuff. And that was how it was. And women don't build businesses. Women are wives and mothers. Women are not business owners. And let me age myself there a little bit. But yeah, I'm Canadian, so I was brought up kind of much more conservative Victorian type English background family that you just picked yourself up and you went on and you didn't rock the boat. And I don't blame my parents. That's how they were brought up. So there's me came along. I was the third of 4 girls, and I was the different one. And it wasn't anything I could put my finger on. I just never felt like I quite fit with the rest of the family. And it was, how we discovered it was when I became a personality science trainer. And I did a personality assessment, which I have as a free gift for anybody that wants it. I realized that, and finally it was my older sister. She says, well, Barb, you were slightly different than the rest of us. We knew it, didn't know how to articulate it, didn't think it was a bad thing, but it was
In what way were you different? Can you put your finger on it?
More flamboyant, more outgoing. I would go and talk to people. I was kind of the life of the party kind of thing, and they relied on that.
I could totally see that. Yeah, because you are.
Because I am. And yet what would happen too is because we all have 2 sides. And that's one of the things that I teach my clients is that, hey, there is the law of polarity. There's 2 sides to every story. There's hot and cold. There's hard and soft. There's black and white. There's, the side of me that was this outgoing. Well, the other side of me was like, I'm not going to talk to another person. Leave me alone and let me just be quiet.
Yeah, I think I share that with you. There's the outgoing part. There's and I'm ready. Let's da 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 da. And then I need to go into my hidey hole.
I need to hide. And either way, it was so like when I was the outgoing, like my uncle, it's like, oh, you are so much like your uncle. And that wasn't necessarily a really good thing because he was that entrepreneur type person. But then when I was my quiet, it was be like, what's wrong with you? So I grew up with that. No, neither way was
No
right.
way to win. No way to win.
There was no way to win. Exactly. And that was kind of how I grew up, never realizing that, well, that was just the way it was.
So then how did you, okay, so you had the widow's fog, you woke up from that and you said, Barbara, let's get to, and did the, what happened next? You went and you found yourself some help.
Yep. Got into the coaching program. That coaching program. Well, one day I was in my group coaching program with my girlfriend Pat, and we were both widows, but there was like, I think in our group there was maybe 10 women. And so we were just having a great time. But at the end, it was like we were all chit-chatting, and I said, oh, by the way, to my coach, his name was Phil. And I said, gee, by the way, Phil, I'm not going to be here next week. I'm going to Montreal. He says, you're going to Montreal? Why are you going to Montreal? And I said, well, I'm Canadian. I'm going home to visit. And he went, well, he said, you know what? The other company that I do coaching with, they're having an event in Montreal. Let me send you a free ticket. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll take a free ticket. Thinking in my mind, okay, Phil, I will go. I will listen to it. It's a 3-day event. I will go the first session. I will listen, fulfill my duty as Coach E, and then I'll be done. Well, I was absolutely glued to my seat. And by the second day, it was like, this is what I want to do. This is what, and it wasn't even that I want to do it. This is what I need to do. I need to help other people get through the journey, their journey, the same way that I am going through my journey. And it was and it was called The Ultimate Game of Life. The Ultimate was the first one. And then I went to the Millionaire Mind Intensive. From there, I just blossomed and I took all their coaching. That's where I got all my certifications from. I became a certified dream coach, became a certified personality science trainer, because it was all about knowing who you are, because that's where my struggle was. I had no idea who I was, and I had to find out. So I took all the courses. So now, hey, whatever anybody throws at me, oh yeah, been there, done that. Oh yeah, been there, done that. Yeah, been there, done that. And it's just been absolutely amazing, because people can come to me and go, gee, this is where I'm at. Great. But where do you want to go?
I love your energy, Barbara. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
And my favorite, I have to tell you, my favorite question is, no matter, and it doesn't matter what age. Like one day I was talking to a guy, and he was a young man. He was probably in his late 30s. And we were talking about what he was doing and all that stuff. And he was in e-commerce. And so then he was saying, well, Barb, what do you do? And I said, well, before I tell you that, let me ask you a question. And he said, sure. And I said, well, you've told me all the things that you're doing. You're in e-commerce and you're doing this and you're doing that. And I said, so who are you within that?
Did he do? Did he freeze like a deer
Dead
in
silence.
the headlights?
Deer in headlight, dead silence. But then, which is the moment that that's landed, he went, that's a really interesting question. And we went on to have a wonderful session, because he realized, I said, you're in your 30s. If you don't start now, you're going to get to 50 and you're still going to be all about what you do. And so we get so caught up in what we do, what we have, what we accomplish, that we never think to stop and think about who we become. Who do we want to be? We know what we want to do. We know what we want to have. We know what we want to accomplish. But who do we want to be? And once they get that moment, I want to be, and they have an answer for it. It's amazing when they catch it. And that's when I knew that he had started the journey.
Wow. What happened for when you asked yourself that question for the first time?
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming there was a first time you asked yourself that question.
That was when I didn't know.
When you let me say when you answered that question for the first time for
Mm-hmm.
yourself, and that changes, right?
Oh,
I'm
yes.
assuming, right?
Yes, it is going to change a little bit.
What did it do for you, or what kind of moment was that when you felt like you had a glimmer of an answer for the first time?
I knew I was a teacher. I knew I wanted to teach people how to live a thriving life, because we all deserve to lead happy, healthy, debt-free, abundant lives. We just need vehicles and the mindset to do it. And we're not taught. We're taught to do and to have. We're not taught to how to be. And that's where I start. And I start with finding out, have they ever done energy work? You have to know where that you have a personal energy. And it's a very simple exercise that I do with them. Just we need to know that you are a personal, that you have personal energy. And once they know that, it's like, oh, well, that energy is what's going to help you move forward. But let's get in touch with what that means for you. And once they start, it's like they open the door. And once there's that one little spark in the light, out of the darkness, then they can go but they have to be willing. But once you start, oh, it's a good thing when you start. You get that first little inkling. Well, you know too, your first little inkling, then all of a sudden everything else, because then it shows you your next step. But you have to take the first step.
Yeah. So we're almost out of time, but I still want to ask you this question about the dream coaching. Tell me more about that. I'm just curious. I love dreams.
That was a huge thing for me. One of the things, so often when, like, with one of my clients, his name was Alex. And I said, well, if you weren't doing what you're doing now, he was in financial services. I said, if you weren't doing what you're doing now, what would you rather be doing? What do you think you would be doing? Silence, no clue.
Mm-hmm.
But then he said, well, has a kid. Keywords so often. Has a kid. I always wanted to do this. Well, in my case, has a kid, I wanted to be a teacher. Then took a teaching class and went, I will never, ever on God's green earth ever be a school teacher, because it was the structure of my family. And I just was rebelling against the structure of family, which it was just, it was done. So then it was like, so I always thought, okay, I'll never be a teacher. But when I became a dream coach, I was exactly, as a kid, I always wanted to be a teacher. What would that look like now? And that's when I'm a trainer. I'm a trainer with a vision for people's lives that they can't see yet for themselves. But I have a vision for them. Let's go do it. But let's do it one step at a time. To know who you are, and then to find freedom from the things that are holding you back, and then to discover what your purpose is. But then you take those first three things and let's make a difference in the world. Oh, it's awesome. But they have to get the first thing, know who you are. And I'll tell you, I'm a senior. I'm a successful, energetic, no nonsense, inspiring, outrageous rebel looking for her next adventure.
Okay, wait. You have to do it again. One more time.
I'm a senior. Okay. Successful, energetic, no nonsense, inspiring, outrageous rebel looking for her next adventure. That's why the picture that I sent you was me with my girlfriend's Harley.
I love it. I was wondering, I was going to ask you about that. So that's your,
gotcha. That's a friend of mine, and we ride.
I love it.
And we do charity rides, and she'll just call me, what are you doing? Oh, let's go for a ride. And always wanted to ride a motorcycle. And so next year I'm going to get one of my own and learn to ride, because I want to drive.
Yes,
Look, that's
ma'am.
find a new
Yes,
adventure. Find a new
ma'am.
adventure.
Find a new adventure. You're speaking my language, lady.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for
Oh, you're
being my
welcome.
guest here. What are you most excited about that's coming up, or how can people find you? Tell us a little bit more.
Yeah. I've got a free gift. Do the personality science. Do the personality. It is just amazing because one of the things that it helps you to do is to quit beating yourself up for the things that you're not and really celebrate the things that you are. Because so often we do that.
Say that again.
Quit beating yourself up for the things that you're not. Celebrate the things that you are. And that was one of the first things that I learned to do for me.
That is gold right there. That is exactly what I'm trying to learn right now, Barbara, is how to stop beating myself up and celebrate myself for who I am.
Quit comparing yourself to somebody else. You are
Yes.
absolutely the most unique. You have unique fingerprints. Your ears are unique. Your nose nostrils are unique. Every hair on your head is unique to you. The palm of your hand, not one person has another palm like yours. You are unique. Start believing it. And then take the steps to make it real for you, more real. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Thank you. I will have a link in the show notes for that personality assessment for anybody who, if you're driving right now, just I'll have all that at the end of the show for you.
Mm-hmm.
And how can
and if anybody wants to talk to me, on LinkedIn, I'm the midlife mentor.
The midlife mentor, is that
Barbara
how people
Ellison,
find you on? Barbara
Ellison, midlife mentor on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So yeah, reach out to me, send me a message. I love to chat with people.
Well, I'm so glad that you came and chatted with us in Clubhouse that morning.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I love counting you in my group of friends now. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Well, there you have it. Oh my goodness, Barbara. What a powerhouse she is. I think what I really love about her is this unstoppableness that comes with it. I mean, from being in a widow's fog to what she's doing now, that is just incredible to me. And it's just an example of like, going from sitting on your couch and watching reruns of Frasier to doing what she's doing at her age right now, and with such energy and enthusiasm and mission and drive. Wow. So my big takeaway from this whole thing is find a new adventure. What's your next adventure? I can't wait for you to figure that out. And if you do, if something comes up for you, please let me know. Please let me know if you're up to a new adventure. I would love to hear about it. Oh my goodness, we're almost at the end of 2023, my friend. How did that happen? So crazy. I'm excited for the coming year. Making plans. I'm ready for a new adventure. I am ready. Are you? Okay, before I go, I want to do a shameless plug for my book. It's ready, it's out in the world, it's available on Amazon. It's called In Full Bloom, A Guide to Aging Playfully. I call it the little book that could, because it is a little book with big impact. It's got big ideas about how to live playfully at any age, really. And yeah, go get yourself a copy. Get one for somebody else. And if you have already picked up a copy and you left me a review, thank you. If you haven't left a review yet, please just pop on over into Amazon and leave a review there. That'll help other people to find this book. And it really is important to me that people start to embrace this idea of aging playfully. People talk about aging gracefully. People talk about aging well. And those phrases just don't resonate with me, because how do you define what's aging well? How do you judge that? But aging playfully, I think we can all do that. And if we do, what's possible from there? What new adventure might we get out on and embark on? All right, that's it for now. I hope you have a great week. Stay safe and well, and talk soon. Bye-bye.